Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Green Tea Podcast. Today's episode is all about Virgo season. All right, Emma, jump right in. Let us know who our Virgos are.
Yes, absolutely. So, welcome everyone to Virgo season. This year, Virgo season runs from August 22nd until September 22nd, 2025. So, we're really coming up here. I think by the time we post this, it'll be Virgo season. For some added notes, on August 25th, we're going to be having a new moon in Virgo, which will encourage things like refinement, fresh routines, intention setting, especially around health, hygiene, being of service to others. And then on September 8th, we'll have a full moon in Pisces, which is the opposite sign to Virgo. This is going to highlight release, rest, surrender, finding the balance between structure and flow, or, like emotion and spirituality and practicality. So in a kind of a general gist of the dates, that's what that is. What else here? I think I wanted to say something about Virgo is also a mutable earth sign. So I know that we've talked about this on the other episodes, but mutability is one of the modalities in astrology. Excuse me. So for Virgo, that means that one of their strengths is that they are practical yet adaptable. They're flexible, but they also are grounded in their routines. So out of all the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, all of them being earth signs, they are practical, they are grounded, they are consistent, things like that. But out of all three of them, Virgo is the one that is the most mutable, flexible, adaptable, and able to kind of confront change with that versatility and flexibility.
Interesting. I know you say that Virgos are ruled by Mercury, mental clarity, communication, the wisdom of details and patterns. Kind of sounds like air signs a little bit, but they are earth signs.
Yes, correct. So even though Mercury rules, so Mercury has two rulers in astrology. It's or rules, I guess, two signs. It's at home in two signs. One of them is Gemini, and the other is Virgo. So as you so kindly pointed out, which is great, Virgo is an earth sign, but it does rule communication, mental clarity, things like that, despite being an earth sign. And I think what is different about Mercury ruled Virgo instead of Mercury ruled Gemini is that I think of Mercury ruled Gemini as a very like curious and like it's almost like a retrieving type of placement where it externalizes a lot of the thoughts or the feelings or the things that it has to say. It's very curious. It will go around in search of information. Whereas Virgo is a bit more introspective in the way that they are mercurial. So they have the same, penchant for thinking and mental, like anything mental, analysis as well. But theirs is directed a bit more inward. They're more introspective with it. They can be inwardly, critical. They're very improvement oriented. So they're likely to spot a lot of flaws or imperfections or just areas for improvement. And that's kind of more their goal. Whereas Gemini's is more about externalizing and sharing that information, if you will. So,
I think one Virgo that I know is my dad is a Virgo, and I know in Asia we don't really go by the Western astrology, but I do see his Virgo patterns. He is so like play by the books and play by the rules. He takes every little problem and like blows it up into this huge problem, and they're very detailed, which is great, but also they're very critical and judgy at times. But I think they're very grounded and caring people. So I love Virgos, yeah. But minus the judgy part, they seem to be very judgy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of makes sense. I know I didn't really touch on the core themes of Virgo, but I guess I could share a little bit now. Some of the core themes are what you've just mentioned. Virgo being improvement oriented, it means, like I said, that they are specifically attuned to spotting areas for improvement, small little details that, like, to them, they could see this could be fixed and this could be improved X% or whatever. And so that is great, but kind of like you said, that also means that critical eye, it's very easy for it to start infiltrating into other areas of our life, right? So like nitpicking things, or like you said, being a bit judgmental about things, or just being really, really critical to the point where it's like, oh, wow, I feel down on myself now, or I feel like nothing I do is good enough, or whatever. These are common phrases that I'll hear from people who are navigating some type of Virgo energy, or they have a partner who has a lot of Virgo energy. They can sometimes feel like my partner wants perfection and I have no idea how to give that to them, you know, and no matter what I do, I feel like every little thing I do is wrong, no matter what it is. Which obviously I know that there's a lot more information that needs to be kind of assessed in that situation, but that is one of their traits, is that penchant for criticism, attention to detail, which obviously has positive and negative manifestations. Virgo also is all about being of service to others. It likes to feel helpful and useful. It has a method to its madness. It likes to be organized. It's refined. It's very discerning. And so this is very good, obviously, because one of the things that Virgo, I think, can teach us is how to really connect with, you know, like your inner healer, and how to engage in practices that will support your growth and development. Um, and they understand like taking care of themselves in that way is also a way that they can give to others, you know, to show them that same care through like, for example, acts of service is a big, like, Virgo, it's a love language, yada yada yada, I get it, but with Virgo it's one of the things that fits very well with them, is they're very practical and they like to serve. So acts of service is like very literally a way that a lot of Virgos will show um you know, love toward others or care toward others. So yeah.
I just noticed that Virgo signs are usually like the main sign that you see online is like a sign of a female. Why do you think that is? It's literally
So
like a photo of a woman.
yeah. So Virgo's symbol is like the maiden. Like just like Aries is
Mm.
the ram and Libra is the scales, Aquarius is the water bearer. It's a woman just because Virgo is considered like the maiden, or the, so some people use different terms for it, I suppose. But yeah, it's supposed to be like a maiden woman. So yeah, that's why it's a lady.
What's a maiden? Like a maid or like active service kind of person?
Like how would you describe a maiden? Like people also call Virgo like the virgin, and it obviously,
Mm.
like, there is a correlation like sexually with that, but like it's the virgin maiden, so it's like the energy of representing things like, for example, purity, which is a big Virgo theme. This is one of the stereotypes that Virgo gets online, of being so quote unquote OCD, meaning like very cleanly, you know, very picky, cleanly, like has to, or, you know, whatever assumptions people make about that. But one of the ways that this correlates is that Virgo understands that systems function most efficiently when they are pure and devoid of like crap. So
Mm.
even on a basic level, right? Your body physically, it functions best when you're not putting like garbage into it, like processed foods and sugar and alcohol and all this stuff. When it is pure and it's just functioning with like water and healthy foods and whatever, it is functions more efficiently. You probably feel better. Um, so even just in a basic sense like that, like they're all about this almost like moral
Mm.
purity, sort of, and like this, you know, giving unto others so selflessly, you know what I mean, which is sort of like the energy of this this maiden. You know, they're full of humility, they're very humble. You know, they kind of just are in the background operating, but they're a very crucial, like crucial part of the function of like how things work, or the function of service to others, or
Mm.
things like that. But yeah, I hope that that answers the question.
Yeah. No, I mean, the only close people again in my life that are Virgo that I know is my dad, and he's very like that. You know, he goes by the rules of the books, never ever, wants to get caught by the police or, break the law. He's super like organized about that. So, yeah. But do we have any Virgos in our charts?
Yeah, so we both do. I have Chiron and Virgo in the sixth house, and you have Jupiter and Virgo in the 11th house.
Hmm.
So those are, to be honest, they're pretty different. Um, my placement, Chiron represents, so Chiron in astrology represents the wounded healer. The sign and house that it's in will tell you a little bit about a wound that you feel you are always coming up against. And you might kind of feel like you never fully overcome this thing, but in confronting it and dealing with it and learning to heal it, you can become kind of a master of that specific thing. And so, you know, your energy in that healed form, or the lessons that you've learned, you can then become a teacher to others and like teach other people how to overcome this thing if you choose to, sometimes more overtly and sometimes not. So for me, Chiron and Virgo means that one of the wounds that I have, or my capacity for healing especially, falls in the area of Virgo, meaning I may experience struggles with like sticking to a routine, or something about my routine, is crucial. For me specifically, it's that I struggle to have a routine. Whereas other people might have the opposite, where like everything has to be so routine that there's no flexibility. But for me, it's that I kind of struggle to maintain routines, especially when it comes to like workout and a healthy eating and da da da, and like making sure that I'm hitting everything, like accurately and fully. There are also themes of like perfectionism and self criticism that I definitely have had to learn to navigate throughout my life. Um, a lot of overthinking. Analysis paralysis is a common struggle of Virgo placements, and this ties into what we were talking about earlier about um, Virgo being ruled by Mercury. So some people will say that Virgo is like an honorary air sign. Like we have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius as the air signs, but then Virgo is like an air sign because
Mm.
it is so mercurial as well. So yeah, for me, that's how a lot of that works. The other thing that I would say for me that comes as a wound is uh, I think I used to place a lot of my value in being helpful and being like I don't want to say a caretaker, but almost like a caretaker or like a responsible person
Mm.
for others. And sometimes I would be offering this help, not necessarily because I wanted to or because I could, but because I felt like, oh, like this is the role that I have. This is the role that I have in this connection, and this is what makes me valuable to this person. And I just feels like I have to do it. I feel obligated. I don't necessarily feel like I'm doing it because I truly desire to. So that's a relationship with myself and with Virgo energy that I've had to work out. Um, for you, you have Jupiter and Virgo in the 11th house, which is actually more about, first of all, like friendship, because the 11th house is about friendship or like big dreams and aspirations and like group kind of things. Yeah, Jupiter is the energy of like growth and expansion. In the direction of Virgo, it means that like part of your growth and expansion comes through things like, your acts of service and like rituals, like your ability to see the small details in things and like point out, you know, I don't know, just like things that people don't notice. So even for example in the way that you work, like part of how you grow and expand and like kind of I don't want to say ascend, but like ascend higher in your life or whatever, is through your ability to be discerning and refining and things like that. So even if you look at your work, you have videos that you have to sit down, you have to edit them. That's like a very Virgo thing to do, is like sit down and edit a video, for example. But like your ability to like find what needs to get taken out and how things need to get spliced together, and oh, this is like not quite the right sound for this part, you know what I mean? Like that ability is very Virgo in nature, and so part of how you grow is by taking a little bit of that Virgo energy, putting it in your back pocket, and kind of like, cool, when I need to operate with this, I'll operate with this. um Similarly, obviously you have the same not the same shadow, but like you can experience the same shadows as the one that I just mentioned, like the analysis paralysis, or like the self-criticism and being really hard on yourself, or kind of feeling like, oh, to keep the peace with my friends or whatever, like I have to give to them or something. I feel obligated to show up and to you know just be present. So yeah, that's kind of
Mm.
how that works. And it's funny because I know one of the things about you that is very Virgo in nature, it makes me think, or Virgo, Jupiter and Virgo, is so whenever you go to these Korean beauty skincare events or like whatever events you go to, you'll get all this stuff, and then you'll end up being with me or with a group of us, and then you're like, "Oh, guys, I got you. I have some stuff. I got to give. Like, I'm going to give it to you. Do you want this product? Do you want this product?" And it's so amazing. It's so kind of you to even offer that in the first place, when like you don't have any. You don't have to do that. It's just something that you do out of the kindness of your own heart. um, but that's one of the ways, like through sharing something practical and useful, like for example a skincare product, like you're gifting that to me almost, and that's one of the ways that like you showcase your love and your affection for others, or just taking on that role of being someone who has abundance and who can share it with people, and then chooses to do so. So I think that's like a really funny random example of like that energy at play, but it's much
Yeah.
appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to work, I don't play. I'm like very work centered in my life. I've always been, and I feel like I get the most use out of my life when I'm working. So
Mm,
maybe that's where that Virgo energy comes in, where it's like
yeah.
I have to be practical, don't mess
Mm,
up, fuck up my work life.
mm, hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see that because yeah, I feel like as well that when Virgo is in service to something greater, you see a lot of that energy come through very strongly. So, for example, with the work that you're doing, like, sure, it's good because it keeps you busy and it keeps you, like entertained or whatever. Sure, but there's also probably like a deeper reason why you do this. It's to share stories or to share information or to like uplift others or just what I mean, just engage and connect, whatever the thing is that you're in service to. There can also be a
Hmm.
drive from Virgo there to like do something good and helpful and create useful content, or just yeah, help people heal in some form, even if you're
Mm,
not even if you're not like a healer yourself. Even being an entertainer can be healing. People that make movies or music, like that's so healing. So yeah,
hmm.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. All right, let's go into relationships with Virgos. Well, what does it feel like to be on a date with a Virgo?
We're gonna have to ask someone that dates Virgos, I guess. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm not kidding, but so yeah, in relationships, I would say Virgos can be very, like I said, they like to be useful and helpful, and they sort of carve out this role for themselves as like a caretaker. And so, if we start with the shadow aspect, or like the things, maybe like wounds or whatever that Virgo might struggle with, this could be like getting into relationships and perhaps they are, for example, like really critical. So, sometimes I've been in this situation. I don't know if you have, but we will date people and they can be really critical and like really harsh. And it's like every kind of like little thing is like a problem. And some things it's like, yeah, okay, this needs to be fixed, definitely. And then other things it's kind of like, okay, you don't like the color of the jeans that I decided to wear today. It's like, that's a little bit, sounds like not my problem. You know what I mean? Like, sounds a little bit like that's more of something in here that you are struggling with accepting, that I'm wearing blue jeans instead of black jeans. So, but there are people that can be like that, where it's like every tiny little thing that doesn't fit what they want, they can be very critical, and that's how they assert their control. Um, Virgo can also be a little bit, it depends, but they could be emotionally unavailable because they are so analytical and they are so focused on like being the selfless like giver and nurturer and fixer and all these things that they don't have room for themselves. They don't even make room for their own emotions, their own needs, whatever. And instead of focusing on themselves in that way, or nurturing themselves and others, sometimes what they will do is that they will overgive to others and over nurture others instead of themselves, because they have carved out, what they believe is a role for themselves in this person's life if they continue giving. This is very similar to when we did the Cancer episode, and we had talked about how Cancer sometimes will give and nurture with the hope and expectation that that person will stay because of it. Virgo can have a similar energy, though Cancer is usually a bit more like emotionally driven, emotionally saving and nurturing, whereas Virgo can be more of like in a practical way, like a problem solver, an organizer, like helps you have everything set so that you don't have to worry about it, kind of like, more in a more of a practical way. Um, and so with this, they also can sometimes seek people, partners who like need saving or fixing in some regard, because they're like, great, I'm good at that, I can fix things, I know how to make them perfect. And then that becomes the role in the relationship. And so sometimes, obviously not sometimes, but that obviously lends its hand to imbalance in relationships, and one person kind of feeling like they're doing a lot of this fixing and fixing and fixing and fixing and fixing, and then the other person possibly feeling like, I mean, they could feel all types of ways about that, I guess. So that's kind of on more of like the shadow aspect of Virgo. And one of the things that they're meant to learn is that their worth and value is not dependent on how much they can fix somebody. You know what I mean? They're here to like learn that first of all, they are worthy of love just as much as anybody else is. So they are worthy of pouring into themselves and like caring for themselves in that same way that they might try to help and fix others, I guess. Um, in a positive, kind of more positive, in a more positive sense, these people are like extremely grounding. They're very devoted as well, meaning like when they decide they want to be there for somebody and with somebody, they can be very loyal people and very committed to that, very devoted to that. They're very attentive, and if you consider the fact that Virgo obviously is attentive to detail, this also plays into the fact that just overall they're very attentive individuals, and part of that is due to the fact that they're also just naturally attentive to detail. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that's that. In a healthy balance, they are the types of people who are very helpful and very useful, but they also know how to have proper boundaries for themselves. They also know when someone else is in need of something beyond what they can give them, or beyond what, beyond the point of care that they can offer. So they'll know how much or how little, for example, they can help, and then we'll try to continue helping them more by, encouraging them to do other things or like find other forms of help or support if they need it, instead of trying to take on all of that to like prove something, or to like keep the bond. They often bond with people through things like shared rituals, or like I said, acts of service earlier. Just being a very steady presence and routinely showing up in someone's life like over and over and over again, and showing through their actions, like I said, that loyalty, that devotion, that commitment to the relationship and to the other person. um so yeah, I think other things that I might have forgotten to say are Virgo also can sometimes, like, let's say that they feel hurt by something that you've done. They can be a little bit passive aggressive sometimes, and be like, they'll like withhold affection, or they'll withhold love or kindness or whatever until they feel better. Or they might like nitpick you instead of like just engaging with you like a normal person, instead of, I don't know, like addressing whatever problem they might have. So yeah, they can be a little bit passive aggressive in that sense. Um, and they
Mm.
often really need to be with people who make them feel valued and like their needs matter. Oftentimes, Virgo has a strong need for like consistent communication or cleanliness and order. They like to be in a home, for example, that's like organized and clean, and I don't know, like their basic routines are cared for and supported. So they need to be with people who, even if they are not the same way, they can at least respect that and honor that in somebody, and doesn't dismiss kind of like their own inner needs for that structure and that routine. But yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that that sort of
They kind of sound like a
there's a
mix
lot there.
between water and air signs in a sense when you said they're
Yeah.
passive.
Yeah, I would say so, because obviously with like the Mercury thing and kind of being so analytical, they obviously share qualities to air signs, but they are the other feminine suit of the zodiac. So water signs and earth signs are feminine, and then air and fire are masculine. So in addition to like that similarity that I was talking about with Cancer, earth signs are also the other feminine suit. So more likely, not always, but more likely to engage in conflict passively or passive aggressively versus just attacking it directly, which is what a fire or air sign might be more inclined to do. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's some similarities there for sure.
Virgo men are for me. I don't know. Have you ever dated a Virgo?
Not. I'm not seriously, at least. I'm sure that I've maybe been
Mhm.
on a date or something with someone who's a Virgo. Actually, there's someone that I'm thinking of who is a Virgo. Um, and he was he's very Virgo, like through and through. This guy is a Virgo, but I think he also had like, he had a stellium in Virgo. He had like a bunch of other stuff in Virgo. So he's just got a lot of that going on, but definitely,
Wow.
everything about what I'm saying was probably true about him. One of the things that I could really appreciate about this
Mm,
guy as well was that he, and we didn't really date. Like, I just want to put that out there. This is not like a relationship that I was in, but it's someone that I can think of that I think fondly of. And he knew about his shadows, and he was very honest about that. And I think I could really appreciate that, at least at the time that he and I were like friends and would spend time together. He would openly tell me like, oh yeah, like I'm a control freak and I hate when things are not organized, or I hate when there's not X number of bags in the thing or whatever. And he's like, I know I can be critical, and I know that da 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 da. And I don't know, it was just nice at the time to be around somebody who I thought was an amazing person, and showed all of these amazing qualities. But even in that, he himself was aware of like, yeah, all these things are true about me, and I have to be mindful of these in the way that I navigate the world. And I can be judgmental and I can be harsh. And sometimes he's been told that, he's not the easiest person to work for because of that. But he's trying to work on it. He's that's what he was telling me.
mm,
So yeah, I just think that that's interesting.
yeah.
But yeah.
Can you imagine having a Virgo boss?
I feel that, I guess to be
Or could
fair,
they make a good boss?
that's what I was going to say. I guess to be fair, they probably could be good. I think every sign has the potential to be a good boss, obviously. It's
Mm,
just the strategy that they use is different. Like the way that an Aries is a good boss might be different than the way like a Cancer is a good boss. You know what I mean? They have strengths that maybe the other doesn't, and yada yada yada. But I do think that Virgo could be probably very good. In fact, I know a few people who are Virgos who are like teachers or consultants or like some like editors or something like that. And they like, everyone that works with them like rave reviews, just rave reviews. They're like, these people never compromise quality. They're grounded enough um to take constructive criticism and like make improvements and like keep moving forward. Still like emotional or like at home with who they are and their work enough to know when it's good enough, and it's like now you're just asking for perfection type of a thing. um, because they are so driven to be helpful and useful, like they're also people who will go above and beyond at the job that they have. Or this is a potential, of course. I'm not saying every Virgo, but um, and everyone that I know who like has worked with somebody that I know well who's a Virgo, they all say very similar things in that regard. So I do think they could be good bosses. Maybe nitpicky, maybe micromanagey until they feel that they can trust you, but I think the potential is there for sure.
micromanagey. I like that word.
Yeah. I guess like the last thing that I would say would just be some things about what Virgo is here to kind of transmute and transform. A lot of these things I'll run through them, and some of them I know I've said already. But for example, instead of being so hypercritical and like obsessing over flaws, Virgo is supposed to kind of learn that perfection is fleeting. It's this state that is not realistic or sustainable to actually attain for a long time. And so instead of chasing perfection, they should focus more on what it is that they are in service to, instead of trying to like chase this arbitrary like peak moment that will only be there for a second before you're back down and then chasing it again. um, they're also designed to learn that like they don't need to abandon themselves and their own needs in order to become valuable to others. They don't need to like help everybody or fix everybody or get rid of everyone's problems for them. Just being like a steady pillar who offers help when they can and whatever is like more than enough for the right people. You know what I mean? Because Virgo can sometimes get into this position where they're giving so much that people just keep taking and taking and taking and taking, and it might not be with malice, but maybe they're really like struggling and they just really are taking the help, and then Virgo can find themselves very depleted in some sense. So they're here to learn that their worth and their value is not dependent on becoming the fixer for other people, that they cannot neglect their own needs, and that they need to make sure that their cup is filled, if you will, to use Western analogies here. That their cup is filled and that they are able to give from that place instead of always sacrificing for others. They might also find that they struggle with a little bit of a analysis paralysis, perfectionism, where they're frozen in time until things are perfect. This could look like, I've struggled with this before. I think we've talked about this, where sometimes there's things that I want to say, but then I will hold myself back from saying them because I'm like, oh, that just doesn't sound right. Like it's just like not quite right yet. But it's like by the time it's right, you'll realize like the only thing that I changed was like two words. And it's like, okay, you could have probably said the same thing and got the same point across, like, but you held yourself back for like months saying this because you wanted to get the words just right. You know what I mean? So there can be a little bit of that, like because of the perfectionism and the desire to get things perfect and very exact and precise. There can be a paralysis that comes with that. So that's another thing that Virgo has to learn to manage. Because they are also very good at picking up small details. They need to learn how to not become overwhelmed by details and almost like just learn to take one step and put one foot in front of the other and like watch things unfold as they take action. I guess that's that. And I'm trying to think of something else. There's something else that I wanted to say. Oh, yes, because like air signs, they can be very mental. They need to also learn to feel a little bit more into like the heart and the emotion of things. They can sometimes avoid vulnerability or avoid their feelings by intellectualizing them, which I think we've talked about ourselves being air signs, how we can process a lot of our emotions like through our thoughts and our analysis of our feelings. And so, yeah, they can struggle with the same thing. So they're called to also give their emotions like some time and some space to express themselves or to land wherever they need to land. But yeah, I would say that that's kind of Virgo, I guess.
Mm. All right. Well, it's so interesting how astrology just has it's like a Sims character, and then you could pick like what elements you want. It's like when we were souls up there, I was like, I want to be a Gemini, and you're like, I want to be an Aquarius. I feel like
Crazy,
that's
right?
like what's going on out there, you know?
Yeah, I think about that too because I think we talked about this on another episode or maybe just privately in a conversation because I was born early, so I was supposed to be
Mm,
born later. And I was born kind of toward the beginning of Aquarius season. So more than likely, I probably still would have been born during Aquarius season at some point. If I had been born later, like I could have been a Pisces, or I would definitely have had a
mm,
different moon sign, or whatever. So I think about that sometimes, like when, like, did I decide to come down here, and did I have a plan of like, oh, I'm gonna go down at the end of February and be a Pisces or something, and then the universe was like, bitch, no, you're not. You're going early. Like you got to go now. Or did I choose that? I don't know. But yeah, interesting to theorize, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, like you said, if we come a little earlier or later, it would have been different personality, and maybe that goes into maybe we picked the dates when we want to
Right.
come here,
Yeah.
which is
Who knows,
crazy
right?
to just think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the Virgo episode. What is next? Is it Libra?
Yeah, Libra.
Wow, I can't believe we're going to fall. This is crazy.
Crazy. I know. Hmm.
Well, happy birthday, Virgos. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and see you guys in the Libra episode.